There's a strange weight hanging in the air lately, something you can't quite name. It's not loud or obvious, but you feel it pressing softly against your thoughts the moment you wake up. It trails behind your every step like an invisible echo from a world just out of reach. On the surface, life looks unchanged. People go about their days, routines continue, and the world spins as it always has. But deep inside, something undeniable is different. Something fundamental has shifted. It's like the very fabric of reality has grown thinner, as if we're all walking on a sheet of glass that could crack under the slightest pressure. No one talks about it. Maybe no one dares to, but you feel it growing stronger every single day. The Pleiadians have broken their silence. After watching humanity struggle and evolve from beyond the veil for what feels like lifetimes, they've finally stepped forward with a message so urgent it slices through all illusion like a blade. They aren't warning of a future event. They're not preparing us for something that's coming. What they are saying is that the 5D split, the great divide spoken of in ancient teachings, in dreams, and in visions, it's already happened. It's not about to unfold. It's not slowly building. It is done. It is complete. We now live in two parallel worlds, vibrating at completely different frequencies. They exist side by side, yet are drifting further apart with every breath we take. And still, here you are. You've seen glimpses of this new earth, maybe during a quiet sunrise, a peaceful moment of clarity, or in the way love suddenly felt boundless. In those fleeting moments, the air felt lighter. Possibilities opened wide. You tasted what it's like to live in freedom, in wholeness, in alignment. But then, something tugs you back. You look around and still see fear, anger, confusion. The heaviness of the old world hasn't let go. And you wonder, if the new world is already here, then why does it feel like you're still trapped in the old one? The message from the Pleiadians is deeply honest and difficult to accept. You're here not because you failed, not because you missed something, not because you weren't ready. You're still here because your soul chose to stay a little longer. Your presence matters in this in-between space. You're one of the anchors, one of the quiet way showers, a lighthouse holding steady as the final wave of this great transition pulls humanity toward its destined shore. But this role is not without its risks. As the split widens, the gap between these two realities becomes more profound. Eventually, they'll be invisible to each other entirely. The noise of the collapsing 3D world will get louder, more chaotic, more desperate. It will try to pull people back into its outdated structure. If you're not conscious, if you're not firmly rooted in your inner knowing, the gravity of that crumbling world could pull you back in. And that is the silent battle taking place now. The final test that many will never even realize they're going through. The Pleiadians are ringing the alarm because the time of ease and gentle crossing is over. What lies ahead doesn't respond to passivity or hope alone. It asks for something much deeper. It calls for you to act with intention, to remember fully, and to step into the unknown with no promises. Only trust in what your heart knows is true. You're not here by chance. You're here by divine design. The veil between worlds is thinner now than it will ever be again. That weariness you've been carrying, the loneliness, those sudden flashes of deep knowing, they're not random. They're signs. Signs that you're standing at a threshold, closer than ever to making a choice that won't just shape your future, but will define the very reality you'll live in. The 5D split has already happened. Now the real question becomes, are you ready to remember why you stayed? This shift didn't come with a loud bang. There was no thunder rolling across the sky, no blinding light or countdown. It arrived like a whisper at midnight, quiet, subtle, unnoticed by the busyness of the world. And yet, it was final. There was no date circled on a calendar, no moment you could point to. It was more like a soft door closing behind humanity. Some felt it brush past them, like the breeze of something ending, but most couldn't see it. People continued waking up, going to work, eating dinner, scrolling through their screens, never realizing that the ground beneath their lives had already begun to vibrate at a different frequency. It was subtle because the universe intended it that way. No force, no fear, no dramatic declarations. Only those already listening closely within could feel the shift, could sense that something had quietly but completely changed. And once it did, strange ripples started to appear in time itself. Hours disappeared, swallowed without a trace. People would glance at the clock, only to realize 3 hours had passed and they couldn't remember a thing they'd done. Conversations started looping. Situations began repeating like scenes on a scratched record. Even technology, which normally adheres rigidly to linear time, began to falter. Phones would reset, alarms wouldn't ring, messages would arrive before they were even sent. Reality felt off, like a web fraying at the edges. Most people dismissed it all, chalking it up to stress or forgetfulness. But nature didn't ignore the signs. Animals noticed instantly. Birds flew off their usual paths, nesting in unfamiliar places. Pets became restless, barking at unseen presences, staring at corners as if something stood just beyond the veil. Trees refused to follow their seasons, some shedding too early, others refusing to let go. The oceans shifted in unpredictable ways, defying scientific explanation. Plants bloomed out of season. Bees disappeared from hives. Storms became wild and untamable. It was as if Earth itself was recalibrating to a new rhythm, trying to match the song of an invisible world that had finally arrived. Meanwhile, the human-made systems, those structures that defined the three-dimensional world, began to crumble. Not with sudden crashes, but slowly, undeniably. Governments wavered, financial systems teetered. Institutions once believed to be unshakable revealed cracks too deep to ignore. Leaders appeared lost, policies reversed overnight, economies swung wildly, and the rules that once held society together simply stopped making sense. The towers of human ambition were built on sand, and now the tide was rolling in. For those lost in the routines of life, the collapse might have seemed distant, but for those attuned, it was clear. These systems could not survive in the frequency of the new world, no matter how tightly they clung to their rituals. At the same time, people began feeling things they couldn't explain. Energetic sensitivity rose like a tidal wave. Individuals who never thought about energy before suddenly found themselves overwhelmed. Crowded spaces became intolerable. Simple conversations drained them. Emotions surged without cause. Joy came out of nowhere. Tears flowed without warning. Loud noises, fast-paced environments, even certain foods became too much. The unseen world was seeping through the cracks of ordinary life. We had entered a new layer of existence. Most couldn't name it, but many could feel it. The 5D split wasn't a future event. It had already come and gone, leaving behind a new reality that only the heart could recognize. And still, many found themselves confused. Why are we still here? They wondered. Standing on the edge of a world we no longer belong to? It's not because you missed something. It's because your soul chose to stay. This was not a punishment. It wasn't a failure. It was a sacred decision made in alignment with your highest truth. Before you even stepped into this life, you agreed to return, to be present in this space between worlds. Because after the split, the energy of Earth became unstable. It needed anchors, bridges, steady lights. If every soul ready for 5D had left all at once, there would have been no one left to hold the transitional field steady. The bridge would have shaken too violently. So you stayed, not out of obligation, but out of profound love. You became one of the stabilizers. Your very presence, your thoughts, your breath, everything about your energy emits a signal of calm to the world around you. Every time you choose peace, or love, or compassion, you send ripples through the field. Whether you realize it or not, you're doing sacred work just by existing. You are not stuck. You are not lost. You are here because this moment in history needs you. Without beings like you holding steady, this transition could have unraveled into chaos. It's your strength, not your weakness, that has kept you here. And now, the time is arriving. The final wave is forming. The quiet remembering is beginning to awaken fully. And soon, the choice will no longer be about waiting or wandering. It will be about stepping forward, anchored in love, guided by purpose, and ready to lead by simply being who you already are. You are closer than ever. And this world, this beautiful sacred new earth, it's waiting for you to fully arrive. There's a deeper layer to this journey, one that most people can't see, but many are beginning to feel. It's the layer woven with invisible threads of karma, threads that aren't just personal, but collective. These threads stretch across lifetimes, connecting souls through shared experiences, through silent agreements made long before birth. Some souls chose to stay behind, not because they were stuck, but because there was still work to be done. Not as punishment, but as a final offering, a gift of healing where healing was once refused, a whisper of forgiveness where only silence existed. It was never about suffering. It was about completion, about giving certain cycles a graceful, loving end. And that work couldn't be rushed. Some things need to move through their full spiral to truly finish. These old energies have a rhythm, and trying to skip steps only tangles the thread further. Your soul, wise and tender, understood that before anything else could begin anew, certain echoes had to fade on their own. This wasn't a delay. It was an act of deep love, not just for yourself, but for everyone you've ever touched in this life and beyond. Your physical body has been part of this sacred process, even if you didn't always realize it. It's easy to believe that awakening is only about spirit, about thoughts and realizations. But your body is also a vessel of codes, a sacred archive that carries the memory of every transformation your soul has ever undergone. Higher frequencies aren't just something your mind embraces. They are something your entire body has to learn to carry. If your soul had jumped too quickly into the 5D realm, your physical form might have buckled under the intensity, like a circuit short-circuiting from too much electricity. So the shift had to be soft, gradual. Your cells, your nerves, even your DNA needed time to prepare for what's coming. Staying in this plane a bit longer gave your body the room it needed to welcome the light without falling apart. You didn't fall behind. You honored the sacred temple that is your body, and that alone is a profound act of devotion. Perhaps the most important part of all of this is something many overlook. The final choice, the ultimate permission to shift into higher realms, has always rested within you. No cosmic event or spiritual phenomenon could make that decision for you. There is an inner gate, hidden deep within your being, and it only opens when your heart, mind, and soul are all aligned in readiness. That moment isn't loud. It's not marked by fireworks. It's more like a soft whisper, a gentle yes that echoes from your soul into the universe. That quiet agreement can't be forced. It can't be faked. It happens naturally, like a flower that opens only when the season is right. So if you're still here, it's not because you're late. It's because your timing is absolutely perfect, even when your mind can't see the full picture. Your path is unfolding with purpose, patience, and a courage you may not even know you have. But this path has not been without its hidden snares. As the final separation between the 3D and 5D realms took place in the background, those who chose to remain behind to help others found themselves facing new and unexpected challenges. These challenges weren't loud or obvious. They didn't arrive with drama. They were subtle, quietly woven into the patterns of everyday life. One of the most exhausting traps was emotional burnout. It crept in silently, disguised as regular stress, and many, without realizing it, began to carry emotional weight they didn't even know they were holding. Hopelessness, when not spoken, starts to root itself in the soul. It wasn't the sadness that did the damage. It was the way we hid it, the way we wore a smile when inside we were breaking. That unprocessed sorrow built invisible walls around the heart, cutting off joy and muting the connection to the higher realms. And while this was happening, another more deceptive danger was taking form in the spiritual space itself. Not everything that spoke the language of light was truly of the light. So many spiritual movements emerged, offering love and ascension in exchange for loyalty, admiration, or even money. On the surface, they looked beautiful, full of hopeful promises. But underneath, they carried the same old 3D energy. They used language of unity while quietly building hierarchy. They claimed to offer freedom, but they thrived on control. And those who followed them often found themselves more lost than before, trapped in a new illusion, harder to see through because it wore a mask of divinity. At the same time, the noise from the collapsing 3D world grew louder, almost frenzied. As old systems crumbled, mainstream distractions ramped up. Every screen shouted for your attention. Every news cycle spun a new drama. Every device buzzed and blinked, pulling your mind in 1,000 directions. It felt like the old world was screaming in desperation, using fear, anger, and confusion to keep souls anchored in low vibration. The more you tuned into it, the more distant your own inner voice became. Then there were the traps that were far more personal. They showed up in the people you love, the roles you've held, the places that once gave you meaning. Sometimes a beloved relationship became a tether, not out of malice, but because love slowly turned into obligation. A job you once loved began to feel like a cage. Even a deep connection to community could become something that held you down, not lifted you up. And it wasn't about walking away or breaking bonds. It was about loosening your grip, trusting that what's meant to remain will and what isn't will fade naturally. Letting go is not abandonment. It's an act of trust in your soul's journey. One of the most dangerous and subtle traps came wrapped in kindness, the habit of overgiving. Many old souls, deeply compassionate, felt the urge to give and give and give, to carry others, to awaken them, to save them. But when that giving had no boundary, it became a drain. The more they poured out, the more disconnected they felt from their own center. Helping became a prison, and exhaustion replaced light. The desire to help was pure, but it must be balanced. Ascension doesn't happen by pulling others up. It happens by standing tall in your light and letting that light guide others when they're ready to follow. Now, as the energies continue to shift, signs of your soul's readiness to move beyond 3D become impossible to ignore. You start to feel emotionally detached from things that used to matter. Conversations that once lit you up now feel hollow, like noise from a party you've already left. Political debates, material pursuits, social dramas, they all start to feel meaningless, like echoes from a world you no longer belong to. You might catch yourself staring into space, not because you're distracted, but because your spirit is listening to a deeper call. Your dreams may change too. You might start dreaming of flying, crossing bridges, or stepping through glowing portals. These dreams aren't fantasy. They are your higher self communicating, guiding you gently as you move through the veil. They feel real because they are real. Experiences from another layer of consciousness where your spirit is already traveling. You also begin to lose interest in identity. The titles, the labels, the roles, they start to fall away. You begin to wonder who you are without them, and while that can feel disorienting, it's actually a sign that your true essence is rising. The labels you wore were only ever costumes. Now you're stepping into formlessness, pure being. It's in this state of not knowing that your most authentic self begins to take shape. And then there are the physical signs. Your body, like your spirit, is shifting. You may feel dizziness, like your inner world is recalibrating. Ringing in the ears might come and go, a signal that you're tuning into higher frequencies. Strange sensations, like heat waves, tingling, or lightness, can move through you without warning. They're all part of your realignment. It can be disorienting, but it's also proof that the shift is happening. Your body is adapting to hold more light. Perhaps the most telling sign of all is the growing feeling that you don't belong anywhere anymore. Not in your old roles, not in your old relationships, not in the old rhythm of life. You may be surrounded by people yet feel alone, as though your spirit is quietly preparing to leave the old world behind. This isn't rejection, it's redirection. Your energy is rising, and as it does, your soul is seeking new places, new people, new frequencies that resonate with who you are becoming. As you step more fully into 5D, the laws that govern your reality begin to change. Manifestation becomes instant, not based on how hard you work, but on the purity of your emotion. What you feel shapes your reality faster than ever. The more aligned your emotions are with your highest truth, the more quickly life responds. In 5D, you don't manifest with your mind, you manifest with your heart. That's why emotional authenticity becomes so essential. There's no more room for masks. In 3D, you could hide your fears, your doubts, even your desires. But in 5D, everything is felt. Every intention, every emotion radiates through your field. If your energy is fragmented, the universe can't mirror back to you what you truly want. But when you're open, transparent, and real, when you live from your center, your reality becomes a reflection of your soul's light. This new world isn't a dream. It's here, waiting, already forming around you. And your soul knows exactly how to get there. Trust its wisdom. Honor your process. You're not late. You're not lost. You're arriving exactly on time. In the fifth dimensional experience, one of the most profound transformations is how time itself begins to shift. In the three-dimensional world, time was something that dictated almost every part of your life. You organized your schedule, your responsibilities, and your entire existence according to hours, days, and years. You were always moving toward the future or reflecting on the past, constantly trying to manage or control the ticking clock. But in the 5D realm, time doesn't move in a straight line anymore. It no longer functions in the linear way you once knew. Instead, it unfolds like a spiral, expanding, contracting, and flowing in waves. This new relationship with time changes everything. The idea of waiting for something to happen becomes irrelevant because events no longer follow a predictable path from beginning to end. Past, present, and future start to blend together, becoming more fluid. Everything begins to occur at once, and that gives you a unique freedom. You're no longer bound by the limitations of the clock. You're able to move with the natural rhythms of the universe, and the more you align yourself with that spiral flow, the more connected you feel to a larger cosmic harmony, one that exists far beyond the rigid framework of time. As time changes, so do your relationships. In 3D, relationships were often based on logic, shared hobbies, convenience, or appearances. There was usually a lot of analysis involved, wondering whether someone was the right fit or aligned with your life goals. But in 5D, relationships move from the mind to the soul. Connections are not built from compatibility lists or external measures, but from a deep inner recognition. When you meet someone in this new energy, you just know. It's an instant resonance. You feel like you've known them forever, and there's no need to question or explain why. These connections don't ask you to work hard to prove your worth or fix things that aren't meant to be fixed. The people who are aligned with your soul will naturally find you, and when they do, the bond is effortless. It's not about trying to make something work. It's about letting what's real unfold. These soul-based relationships come without pretense, without ego. They just are, and they feel more natural and true than anything you've known before. Your way of taking action also begins to shift. In 3D, you were taught to plan everything, to think things through, to map out your path step by step. You relied heavily on your logical mind, often forcing things into place through strategy and effort. But in 5D, action doesn't come from the mind, it arises from a deeper knowing. Intuition becomes your compass. You don't have to plan everything in advance. Instead, you listen to that quiet inner voice that guides you toward the next step. Your mind can still help with practical details, but it no longer leads the way. Your trust in yourself becomes stronger than your need for control, and from that trust, your choices begin to flow more freely and naturally. There's a sense of ease, because you're no longer pushing against life, you're moving with it. And then there's the illusion that you need permission to ascend, to evolve, to step into this higher version of yourself. For so long, many have waited for signs, for confirmations, for events that would tell them it's time to begin the next part of their spiritual journey. It's a belief deeply embedded in the old way of thinking, a belief that someone outside of you holds the key to your transformation, that there's a divine counsel, a higher being, or an external source that must give you approval before you can move forward. But that belief is an illusion. The truth is, you've never needed permission. No one else can grant it to you because the power has always been yours. The moment you truly realize that, everything begins to change. The waiting ends. The illusion dissolves. There is no cosmic event that you need to wait for, no external confirmation that will come and validate your growth. Those expectations are just another way that the old world tries to keep you still. They're distractions that keep you from noticing the transformation already occurring inside of you. Your path isn't dependent on the stars aligning or a dramatic revelation from the universe. It's your own inner knowing that unlocks the next step. That inner shift, the one that tells you that you are ready, holds far more power than any external sign ever could. The moment you stop looking outside yourself for answers, the doorway to higher consciousness opens from within. You don't need to wait for the light to find you. You are the light. This awareness can be both freeing and overwhelming. When you see that you've always had the key, it becomes clear that no one else is responsible for your growth. It's up to you. That kind of responsibility is profound because it removes the option to blame anything or anyone for where you are. You are not stuck. You're just choosing. Sometimes choosing fear, sometimes choosing trust. But the choice has always been yours. The only thing that can keep you in 3D is doubt. That lingering voice that says you're not ready, not good enough, not capable. Doubt is the last thread connecting you to the old way of thinking. It creates the illusion that you're separate from what you're seeking, that you're still waiting for something. But once you let go of that doubt and trust in your inner wisdom, everything starts to shift. You begin to align with your higher self. The path becomes clearer. The more you trust, the more you step into the energy that was always meant for you. You're no longer waiting, you're creating. The more you trust, the more you step into the energy that was always meant for you. You're no longer waiting. You're creating. You stop asking for permission and realize you were the permission slip all along. And as you make that shift, you might begin to notice that there are people around you who feel different. People who have already crossed into this new energy, but you wouldn't necessarily know it just by looking at them. They're not flashy. They don't make grand declarations about their journey. They seem to blend into the background. But something about them stands out. There's a calmness, a serenity, a sense that they're somehow unaffected by the chaos around them. They don't get caught up in the panic or the drama. They seem to float above it all, not because they don't care, but because they've anchored themselves in a deeper truth. These people may appear to live quiet lives, but their energy speaks volumes. They're not trying to change the world through force or argument. They're changing it through presence. Their frequency is so high, it creates a kind of protective field around them. Even when they face difficulties, they move through them with grace. They've stopped trying to control everything and instead trust in the divine flow. They don't organize their lives around external schedules or societal norms. They listen to their intuition. They follow their inner guidance. And that's what allows them to live with such ease. They're not here to fix broken systems. They're here to embody a new way of being. They anchor light into the places they walk through, even without knowing it. Simply by existing in their authenticity, they help others awaken. When they enter a room, they shift the energy. Not through words, but through their presence. Their alignment is their offering. Their peace is contagious, and the quiet power they hold helps build the foundation for a new world. They don't need recognition. They don't need to be seen. They know that their role is sacred, even if it's invisible. They live in harmony with themselves and with the higher frequencies of the universe, and that harmony becomes a silent invitation for others to rise. They're not here to lead in the way leaders used to be defined. They lead by example, not authority. Their authenticity becomes a beacon for others, lighting the path not by instruction, but by embodiment. So, if you've been waiting for something, permission, a sign, a message, let this be it. Let this be the moment where you turn inward and see that everything you've been searching for has always lived inside of you. You're not waiting anymore. You're remembering. You're stepping into what was always yours. And you're doing it not by force, not by logic, but by trusting the quiet wisdom of your soul. That is the path of ascension. That is the essence of 5D, and you are already walking it. Earth has always held space quietly, offering its wisdom without ever needing recognition. In much the same way, you're now entering the final stages of the 5D ascension process, and there's one last energetic threshold you must pass. This isn't a test you can study for, nor one you can succeed in by gathering knowledge or seeking validation from the outside world. This moment asks something deeper from you. It calls for complete surrender, a letting go of control, and a wholehearted trust in the unfolding of a higher path. One of the most profound challenges in this final phase is learning to release the need to rescue others. For many, this feels unnatural because helping and guiding others has always seemed like a sacred responsibility. It's often felt noble, necessary, and even loving. But in truth, it can become a subtle trap. The more you hold on to the belief that it's your role to save others, the more you tether yourself to the energy of the old world. The shift into 5D asks you to step back and see that every soul has its own path, its own wisdom, and its own journey to walk. It's not your role to lead them. It's your role to trust that they too are being guided. When you finally let go of that attachment, you create the space to honor your own evolution. You allow others the freedom to find their light, while you continue walking toward your own. The journey also asks you to embrace the unknown. In the 3D world, we've been conditioned to rely on predictability. We've been taught that having all the answers is a form of strength and that clarity equals control. But the 5D way doesn't operate like that. Certainty becomes less important than presence. What matters now is your ability to trust the flow, to walk forward without needing every step to be mapped out beforehand. This level of surrender isn't passive, it's deeply empowered. It's about allowing your inner knowing to lead the way, even when your mind is scrambling for logic or reassurance. It's trusting that the universe is always guiding you, even in the spaces between clarity. At this point, you might feel the deep ache of saying goodbye to the world you've known. There's grief in letting go of the old earth, not because it was perfect, but because it was familiar. You may feel waves of emotion for the people, the places, and even the parts of yourself that have belonged to that version of reality. Mourning is a natural part of the transition, but while it's important to allow yourself to feel what needs to be felt, it's just as vital not to cling. Don't let sorrow become a weight that holds you down. This moment is about honoring what was, while lovingly releasing it so that you can step into what is being born. The old earth gave you so much, but its time is complete. Something new is calling you, and that call requires you to move forward without guilt. Another essential part of this final passage is embracing yourself completely. In the 3D world, we've been taught to measure our worth through other people's eyes. Approval and praise often became the foundation for our sense of value. But in the 5D space, that dynamic dissolves. Your worth simply is. It's not something that needs to be proven or earned. You are enough as you are, without changing, without performing, without asking for permission. Self-acceptance becomes the ground upon which you stand. This is about looking inward and saying yes to your full self, not just the parts you think are acceptable or lovable, but all of you. your shadows, your strengths, your softness, your imperfections. In the energy of 5D, authenticity isn't just welcomed, it's essential. You're being asked to finally believe in your own light, without waiting for someone else to reflect it back to you. And then comes the final leap. This is the moment when your heart speaks louder than your mind, and you're asked to trust it. The mind will always try to intervene. It wants safety, answers, guarantees. It will ask you to pause, to wait, to think things through again and again. But the heart, it knows when it's time. It doesn't need to explain itself or justify its feelings. It just knows. And when that moment of knowing arrives, you must be willing to follow it. This leap isn't always logical. It might not make sense to anyone else. But deep inside, you'll feel a quiet certainty that this is your path forward. The leap doesn't mean abandoning reason. It means placing your trust in something deeper than thought. It means believing in the guidance of your soul, even when the road ahead is uncertain. What lies beyond this final test is freedom. Not just freedom from the limitations of the old world, but freedom to exist fully in your truth. It's a space where love replaces fear, where alignment replaces effort, and where your inner wisdom becomes your compass. The shift into 5D isn't just a personal evolution, it's a collective awakening. But it begins with each individual saying yes to the call, saying yes to surrender, to trust, to authenticity, and to the unknown. You've come so far. Everything you've experienced has led to this threshold, and now the invitation is clear. Let go. Trust yourself, trust the universe, and take the leap.